because other people might watch this back later. So welcome to the chart delineation this particular week, everybody. We've got Cheryl Ann's our only visitor at the moment because we've got Robert and Barbie in here who will jump in and out because they're watching some races at the moment. But I thought what we're going to do, this was one of those, normally what happens, I said this is one of those, normally what happens is Robert and I, for the last 5 years, have sort of got together, and when it comes to Kentucky Derby, and the other one is the Breeders' Cup, and in Australia it's the Melbourne Cup. And it just happens to be that the Melbourne Cup and the Breeders' Cup happen around the same time. The Breeders' Cup happens on the weekend and the Melbourne Cup runs on the following Tuesday. So we tend to spend those, we basically, how it all started for me was I started looking at how and why astrology, do the planets have a physical outcome or effect on the physical outcome of events? And I found that they did, but my test case I used back in the 1990s was I needed something that I could find which was, of short duration, that had an outcome that I knew when it was going to happen and where it was going to happen. And the only thing I could come up with was a horse race that was reliable because it tends to run on time at a particular location. It has a short duration and then you can sort of bang, you can get an answer. So we've been working. Barbie was sort of invited in. She sort of volunteered, but invited herself in, and we sort of offered to come along. And she's been testing vibrational astrology against those charts as well. Basically, what we do is we look at the race itself, and we look at the time of the race, and we run a chart for it. What I've been doing for many years is to determine whether certain planets have more of an impact over the outcome of events. Now, I can honestly say that, yes, I believe they do, and I've got a lot of proof that it does, as in, you could call it circumstantial, it's not written, but it's, when I say circumstantial, getting 10 winners in a row is a pretty good indication that that's a little bit beyond chance level. And then my 11th time, at that point in time, this is going back to the 1990s, I failed miserably, came about 5th, and I went, why? And that sent me on the journey of what I'm doing today. So I've discovered a lot more over the time, and I have talked about this. I've got even in the Astro College community, there is a workshop called Activities Involving Risk, and that particular one involves a lot of this, and we go through it in a lot of detail and working detail. But what we've done is Robert sat in on, was it 2020, Robert, when I did with the IAA?
Yeah, I think. Yes, it was.
Yeah, 2020. And Robert then contacted me afterwards and said, can you give me a hand with this? And at the time, I was probably a little more time on my hands than I do today with the college. And I went, yes, okay, not a problem. And so I said, look, that's not how my evidence doesn't, work like this. I can prove that at a certain time, a certain place, a planet in a certain scenario will make sure that this is going to be the winner and we can pick that. That's great. He said, what about every race? What about all of them? And I went, So that set me on a journey of trying to find out how. So for the past 5 years, Robert and I have done these things. In the view of, we've sort of gone what we call go after the golden prize, which is like the pick six with the big pools. And where if we managed to land one, we would, make a considerable sum of money. So I looked at that.
And I thought, one pick six, we had 4 winners, and the horses that the other 2 races, the horses came in second.
Yes, exactly. So we've had that on a few occasions where it's been very close like that, and that was probably the closest we came. Others have been, 4 winners and a second and a fourth or something like that. But it's been quite a journey. And the idea of it is, I looked at it and went, well, am I better to invest a little bit of time and money into using the astrology to try and get that across the line with all of the planetary energies working against each other during the races, or do I just buy lotto tickets? And I thought to myself, I'm probably better off using my knowledge and trying to hone in on it. And that's pretty much why I committed to Robert and said, yep, okay, each year I'll do this with you. And so right now we've taken another layer and we invited Barbie as well. And she volunteered and said yes. And we said, well, why don't we run it with vibrational? And just before we started this recording, Barbie was letting us know that she'd been running some vibrations for races coming up. And what we've done separately is I've gone off and looked at what I believe is the planetary energies and then picking it to the horse. And we usually pick what I see as a preference in order. So we've got a few to play with. And because some of these races are quite a lot of numbers of horses in the race, thus the big pools and payouts. And Barbie has come back and said, well, funnily enough, when I've done the vibrations, the planetary energies come out the same as what I've picked. So it'll be interesting to see this year how we go. But what I thought we would do, simply because this is about chart delineation, one of the key factors in determining who's going to win is to be able to determine the names of the horse, because I'm going to explain it like this. The name of the horse indicates what it's known or what it goes down in history as what won. So it's the success point. It is the winner. So it's not about the horse or the jockey or its time of birth. It's the event. And so what we're looking for is what name is going to reflect the energy of that moment in time to produce the winner. And that's really the goal, and that seems to be how it works. So in order to do that, we need to take those horse names and break them down into planetary energies and rulership. And that's probably the hardest thing to get right, because when I give the same task to half a dozen astrologers, I'll guarantee you I'll get different rulerships back, because although we've got the rulership book here by good old Rex Bills, which is great, and there's a few others around, there's a Michael Muncasey book, this goes through rulership of, you can't really see with the blur, it goes through the rulership of, you can't really see it. I'll take the blur off for a minute and don't blur my background. And you can see that it goes through all of the different potential rulerships of different words and what planets they relate to. So with that, it still doesn't answer all of the questions, because some horse names are quite unusual and they often blend planetary energies. So did you guys want to add anything, Robert or Barbie, at this point?
No, I just except like you mentioned, that it's not easy to pick out the names of the horses, because Intrepido, that's might be an easy one to think about, but Limbitus test, like when you get one like that, now that was
test.
that was one that when you break that down, you actually had 4 different planets assigned to that one.
So what I'm going to, sorry, Barbie.
So you can, it is something that's really unique to be able to. I think Cheryl, you have a mind that could do this very well, and so doesn't Courtney if she was here. It takes language arts.
Yes. And also just an understanding of what planet and how its energy works. And this is what happens over time. So, Robert, so why you've got 3 people here, everybody, I'm using a combination of, so I run a Placidus chart. I don't do a traditional astrology chart. And I use that modern Placidus chart as the positioning of everything. So even in a traditional chart, you still have an ascendant degree and a midheaven degree, which is taken into account even in a whole sign scenario. So for me, I spread it out into Placidus for that reason. But I also take into consideration a lot of factors that you would include in a traditional interpretations. So I go into a lot to do with disposition of the planets, which one has more power. I look at both traditional rulers and cross-reference with modern rulers. So I do include Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto for those that work with traditional astrology. But I also use both in my interpretation. And I've found that by doing that, I don't miss too much, if you know what I mean. And don't get me wrong, I still miss things. That's why I haven't won it yet properly. But at the end of the day, That's because it's quite complex. So it's very interesting. I even did. You guys would be interested. I took a photo of a chart and I gave it to ChatGPT and explained to it what I wanted and to pick me which planetary energy was going to be more powerful. Do I think that what its interpretation was as accurate as we do it, or in the same vein as what I've learned? No, it wasn't. It wasn't bad. It summarized without going into the depth that it needed to, and that's pretty much my feedback on that right now. So that's okay. Now Barbie has brought in the new technique which we haven't used, which is vibrational, and we're looking at that. And Robert tends to be a Uranian astrologer, so he uses the 90-degree dial and looks for midpoints and different things that are triggering event outcomes, which is traditionally known to predict very well. So we're coming from different angles. So Cheryl, you're in for a bit of an interesting time, but let's start with the horses themselves that are in the Kentucky Derby. And Cheryl Ann, I might ask you if you can give us what you think astrologically is the rulerships, and it can be combined planetary rulerships for each of the horses. We'll go through it together, and then we'll sort it out. And if I just was to leave it there and go through it, and it takes a while, let's just do a few, and then I'll show you what we've actually come up with as those rulerships, and I can explain why. But let me just share the screen. If I share my screen now, there's my Zoom page. Oh, okay, so can everyone see that screen? And more importantly, can you read it?
Yeah, although
You can
it's
see, but you can't read it that
it's
well. But
small.
we
Okay,
get
so
the
I'm going to
horses, but
increase the size.
the interpretations are a little tough.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to increase that size to. Is it letting me do it? Zoom. There we go. I'll go to 200%. That's way too big. Let's go to custom 130. Is that better?
Yeah.
Is that better, Robert?
Yes.
Okay. So what we have is the Kentucky Derby runs tomorrow your time at 6:57 p.m. in Louisville, Kentucky. And as you can see, there is 24 potential horses that run. There is up to 20 in the race, and then these ones here from Great Whites down are sort of the spares, you could say. Okay, so they are if someone is actually, pulls out at the 11th hour. So let's try Renegade. How would you describe a renegade astrologically, Cheryl Ann? And do you know what renegade is?
Um, it's funny, I don't know exactly what it is, but I feel like it's like a rebel. So I would
Yes.
say Uranus.
Yeah. So let's put Uranus in there because I think you're right with that. Now, what I also look at is say, is there anything else, any other energies that may be somebody who is, deliberately
Mars.
Mars? Yes. And I think you're going to find that that is purely the description of who Mars and Mars and Uranus would rule that particular horse. The reason I say it, and sometimes I look at it, is that when we work with traditional astrology, we don't use Uranus. So we know that Uranus is right, but there's got to be a traditional ruler as well. So I look for both of those to see if there's any sort of correlation. And generally speaking, in this case, it would be Uranus and Mars, which is important. So we go to Albus. Now, what I've done is I've pre-prepared a little bit because what I then do when I go through these each one, I put them into Google and I go and I type in the name and then I have the rest of it saying meaning in English because sometimes words are, there's a certain word and I go, what's that mean? And it happens to be something in Spanish or in Italian or whatever, and then you can see what it is in English. So that shows you. So Albus is a Latin word meaning white, bright, or pale, and it's commonly used to signify purity, light, and fairness, and it's the name of the Harry Potter wizard, Albus Dumbledore. But Albus is a male name. So therefore, what planets or energies do you think this would have as association?
Well, based on the word itself, my first thought was Venus,
Now,
but the moon also.
why do you say Venus, Cheryl?
Um, well, isn't the color white associated with Venus?
Because it's bright and it says or pale, it could be sun or moon because it's light. So moon is the pale light and bright light is the sun. But see, this is where it becomes subject to interpretation. The other thing is, the most important thing here is Albus being the name of a male wizard and basically a male name, which I haven't really put in here, but should be Albus as a male name and a Latin word meaning these things. It's like, Sophia, the word means wise, wise. So in this case, being Albus, and we are talking in pure, gender sexes of masculine, feminine. This would have to be Mars, not Venus, I would suggest. But with what you just said, it may also have, say, Moon, and if it's to do with Harry Potter, it can also be fantasy. It's also like what do you call it? A movie. So it could also have a Uranus Neptune effect. That's how I would say. Now, I'm doing this again, but I've probably gone through it in more detail and checked everything. And this may or may not line up with what I've already done because I can't remember every race I've done. So it'll be interesting to see if I get it right. But Intrepido. Cheryl Ann, I'll let you do this one again. What it says here is Intrepido is the Spanish or Portuguese or Intrepido Italian means intrepid, fearless, daring, or courageous in English. So what would that be as a planet?
This seems like a Mars.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's Mars, okay? Now this is the one that Barbie was talking about, litmus test. A litmus test is a simple, decisive, and often metaphorical test that determines the true character, quality, or viability of someone or something. It acts as a clear indicator of public opinion, candidate suitability, or the success of a policy. So it's interestingly enough, and I'm going to just do this for a minute. Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. So I don't know if you saw it come up on the screen, but I'm just testing. I'm just having a quick look. Pun, I should say. But a litmus test is to be decisive. So to make that decision or to be able to go, no, we're going to go this way or that way. And usually it's a clear decision. So when you have a clear decision, what would be the planet or planets that really relate to that? There could be several. Any idea?
Are you asking everybody?
And you.
Um,
Making your brain
Jupiter,
work. Jupiter? Okay, why do you say Jupiter?
because Jupiter is the planet that rules truth.
Okay.
And also law, which has to do with decisions and
Interesting.
they're separating this from that.
Well, interesting you say it because when I've done the litmus test as the answer, I did not use Jupiter. But what you've explained is exactly what happens. People see things differently. And what you've explained also is not wrong. However, when you're doing this, it's sort of like you're having to go, well, let's let's really dig in deep. Because, like when you look at the word litmus test, there is no pure astrological meaning for it. But I saw a test. Anything that's testing is Saturn. Anything that separates is Saturn.
Yeah.
And anything that is making a quick decision, or, because a litmus test is normally it was a piece of litmus paper, you stick it in to the water, it changes color, you come out, you get an answer. So it's a quick decision. To me, that was two things. One, it's going to change state, which means there's a mercurial component. It's also something you dip into water naturally, which is Neptunian. And then on top of it, you've got Mars because it's deciding and moving from one direction to another. Okay, I'm going to go this
Okay.
way. So to me, it was all Mars, Saturn, Neptune, and Mercury. So what I'm getting at is you saw Jupiter, and that's not necessarily saying you're wrong, but when
Hmm.
you've with these horses, when you there's a great thing in astrology, and it's called hindsight. when we always when we look at it later and we go, oh yeah, I should have seen that, and it happens to
Yeah.
me all the time, and I think it happens to a lot of astrologers. You try and get them to choose who's going to win an election, and you get these people decided, and it's only a two things suggest. It's a two outcome event. So usually, anyway, sometimes unless there's some change, but you get differences of opinion, right? And what I'm trying to do here is minimize opinion and hone in on how that energy works. What does it really mean? So if I go back over that, litmus test is literally originally it is a test where you dip a piece of paper in water. So if you even go back to paper's made from trees. Trees is Saturn. But and if you go down to the paper component which you write on, which could be Mercury, there's so many ways you can look at it. But it's a test, and a test or anything testing is usually Saturn. It's like, no,
Um,
we're going to give you a limit, and you have to pass or you don't pass. And Mars is the one that's commanding it and ruling it and making those decisions quickly. So that's the reasoning behind it. But if we added Jupiter to that as well, because it is the rule of law, the only thing I would go against with using Jupiter would be Jupiter's more about expansion of what's there. This is about determining what to do with it and to split it. And that's a
okay.
different energy. Okay? Does
Yeah,
that make sense?
it does. And now that you've said all of that, um, I would probably go with Saturn.
Yeah. So this is the thing. And I hear you loud and clear because what you came up with was not wrong. Okay, that's the thing. It's a matter of it's literally the litmus test of the question. It's a bit ironic, really, but
Yeah.
I'm only sharing, and that's the whole idea of this one today, is sharing with people how I go about it and what's been more successful, and it really is. It takes a while to get your head around it, and when Barbie said in the what's the word for it in the Astrodice session, she said she hasn't seen someone like me do this. What she meant was break down the planetary meanings of a horse. The reason is because I've done it for 30 years and I've learnt the hard way. So that's why I'm sort of just trying to share what I've learned along the way. Doesn't mean I get it right all the time. It doesn't mean what I'm saying is right and you're wrong. What if it is more Jupiterian in some way? I'm not sure, but this is how I would define it. So right to party. This is in. So I've gone and said, what would be the planet that rules a party? Cheryl Ann?
Um, Jupiter and Venus, maybe.
Primarily it's Venus. You're right, but Jupiter only. If it was a big gathering like a crowd, then Jupiter. But if it's a party, intimate, because it can be a fairly intimate. It's a birthday party or any sort of party. It's a social gathering. That's why it's Venus. So, and it's a
Mm,
celebration, which is Venus. Having a good time, which is Venus. So it's all Venus, but you've also got your rights. Your right to party is your rights are ruled by Jupiter. So I get those sorts of things out of good old Rexy here, and then a bit of other stuff. So you're right, Jupiter's involved. It would be Jupiter with Venus. So your right to party is exactly what you just said, Jupiter and Venus. And then you've got commandment. This is an interesting one. So a commandment is an authoritative rule, order, or divine law that must be obeyed. It often refers specifically to the Ten Commandments in the Bible, but generally denotes a serious binding decree. That's its definition. So a command or commanders, so someone who's commanding something, what do you think that would be? What planet?
Well, if we're just looking at the word commander, Mars comes to mind, but I
Yes.
wouldn't assign Mars to commandment.
Okay. However,
Uh,
okay, yes.
um, well, it's either Jupiter or Saturn, but
I
which
tend to
one,
I
I'm
tend to
not
agree.
sure.
Let me have a quick glance at what we've done here. Look, Sun, Jupiter, Saturn with Neptune and Uranus. So a command, to be in command, is not so much Mars, it's actually Sun because it's the ruler. That's the difference. So a commander is usually the one in chief. So the chief of something or the boss is the sun more so than Mars. Mars is the soldier, the sun is the commander.
Okay, I guess I was just thinking military in general.
Yes, exactly. But if you think about it, a commandment is that exact thing. It's telling you what to do, but it's a divine law. It's Jupiter. So you're right. So let's say it's the sun, it's Jupiter, and being a rule, it's Saturn, and being divine, it's also Neptune, if you want to go that far. And literally, that's how it sort of works. It's not an easy one. Okay. Now, Dannon Bourbon. Dannon is primarily a gender neutral name of French and Hebrew origin, meaning God is my judge, but it's often used as a variation of the word Daniel. So to me, that Dannon has more of a masculine or Mars type energy to it than it is just gender neutral. Gender neutral would be probably where it's coming in more now. But if you looked at it from an astrological point of view, if it's been used primarily as a variation of the word Daniel, Daniel's usually given to a boy or a male. So bourbon, what's bourbon?
Well, it's an alcohol. It's a
That's
liquor.
it. So what would that be?
It's a good question. It's an intoxicant.
Yeah, which is a drug.
Neptune.
Yes, exactly. So the difference is for people realizing water or liquids can be the moon. Okay. But because the moon controls the tides and it's also to do with, water and emotion and stuff like that, tears but when you're talking about a drug of any kind, it takes that to the next level because it can be hallucinogenic or can change your state of being. So that becomes Neptune. So you're right. So it is pretty much Mars, Neptune, and I would write with Venus. Now, this is how I do it. Because it's changed to a gender neutral name, it may have a Venusian, can be feminine or masculine. Okay. So then you've got so happy. This is an interesting one, but what do you think so happy would be?
Um, well, Venus would be the obvious choice, but because it's not just happy, it's so happy.
Yeah.
That's the expansion of Jupiter.
Yes, you got it exactly right. That's how I would describe it as well. Some of them are simpler and easier than others, and some aren't. Then you've got the puma, well, the puma, depending how you want to say it. So what would that be? So puma or pumas don't come up in good old Rexy's book, but panthers do. and puma is a form of panther. And interestingly enough, if you have a look, it's Mars and the Sun. I'm just going to cheat and show you because that might be not easy. Being a cat, normally cats, for example, if it was a cat, that would be Venus. But panthers, I think the reason the sun is there is because they're related to things like the lion. They're not exactly the same, but they're a strong presence. And usually, a puma is one of the probably primary hunting animals in North America. So, and Mars because they're a hunter. That's how they live. So,
Well, I actually would have given it a totally different correspondence.
what would you have given it, just from curiosity?
Well, well, the pumas are black, so I would give it to Saturn. And then also the moon, because cats are, to me, they're lunar creatures, for one technical reason that they're nocturnal generally.
Yep, I agree. But traditionally, in astrological rulership, cats are Venus, dogs are Mars.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
so canines are Mars and cats are Venus. Why are cats Venusian? Probably because they like to come up. They like to they create a weird sort of relationship with you. They do what the hell they want, but they're a little bit more effeminate. So, in their I couldn't say that. I really couldn't say that because have you ever heard cat fights outside in the street at night? But at the end of the day, though, they like comfort, they like warmth. They're just
Mhm.
generally they're related to Venus. That's the traditional astrological rulership. Anyway, let's put it that way. Um, they I suppose they have social gatherings of their own. They meet up in the streets and have cat fights at night. But yeah, and that's probably why they've got a Mars energy to them as well. I'm having a laugh at the same time because I'm only going with the traditional rulerships. Now, when I use Mars and the Sun there, I'm relying on this guy to be correct. I've also found that good old Rex Bills occasionally isn't correct because he sat down and gone through and worked all that out himself. It's not, and he's probably also taken a lot of traditional rulerships that he's been able to research, I guarantee you. But there will be times when like what you've just said, Cheryl Ann, and you're very correct, that something like cats being lunar also could be quite correct. I see that as being the case because why? Especially house cats, they're domestic usually. They live in a house. They become part of the family. They are very more active at night usually than they are during the day. Um, so they have all that lunar quality, but their actual nature and what they represent, being Venusian, because they like to be taken care of and patted and affectionate and this and all that sort of stuff, is more Venusian in its way. That if you think about a cat, it gets fed, it does what it wants, it looks after itself. I don't care. Give me a pat, love, and affection, and a bit of food, and I'll just stick around. I know where my bread's buttered, sort of thing.
Mm.
But they develop relationships, and they have that sort of energy about them, which is very Venusian. But doesn't mean that you know. Let's look at it this way and say, would we define an alley cat as Moon Venus, or an alley cat as Moon Venus Mars? Because it's usually an alley cat we relate to. It's out there in the alley. What's it doing? It's looking for a fight. It's looking to beat something up. It's territorial. It's all those sorts of things. It's usually out at night and goes away during the day. So there is a morph of planetary rulerships that can play out. So it's not just specific, and that's where it becomes difficult when you're doing this as a process. But what Barbie was saying is that when I break it down this way and then compare it to the chart, and then I look at which one's actually working or what planet's working, we can, when we find out what the planet is that's working or the planets that are working, then we have to relate them back to what's here and find out if one name has more of that energy working than another. This is where it becomes quite complex. So sometimes it's really straightforward. I'll explain that to you a little bit later. Do we want to go through the whole lot, or should I just jump in and show you what they are and go through it that way? Why don't we?
Luke, the race is going off. The
We
Oaks
can
race is
just
going off right now.
jump in and
Yeah,
sorry.
No, we can do that. I tend to agree. So the race is going off when, Robert?
Right now.
Oh, is it? Okay. So this is not the Kentucky Derby, Cheryl Ann. For those who are watching, what it is called the Kentucky Oaks is the race 13 of the Friday.
But it's for the only for the fillies and mares.
Only for fillies and
Where
mares.
the Kentucky Derby is usually the males.
Okay, so there you go. Zoom. I'm just going to adjust that to 120, say. That's a little bit better. So, Robert, you can tell us who won when it happens, if you like.
Well, they just race just went off, so let's see what happens.
Okay. Because I'm recording this, do you want to just let us know when you know, and I'll keep going with Cheryl Ann. If you want to put yourself on mute, you can. If you
do you have those horses right there?
the ones that we're talking about.
No, for the Oaks. So I can show you which.
Yep, they're here.
Okay. So let's see. Right now, it looks like the 1 and 7 are out front already.
One, which is Explorer, and 7, Dazzling Dame. Okay. Well, Dazzling Dame could be an interesting one. I don't know if it'll win, but it's definitely got a good chance.
They're just this. I mean, they're halfway around the race. They're coming down the stretch here. Let's see who.
Everyone can see my
the
bits.
one is still is still leading right now. There's a
Okay.
horse coming on the side. Let's see who. There's 3 horses right at the wire, and it looks like the 5-horse one.
One. It won, did you say?
It looks like the 5
That it won?
meeting.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. It was the 9-horse.
Always a runner.
Yes, and that was the one that Barbie picked. She liked that.
Yep.
We played 3 horses in this as for part of the double: the 1, the 9, and the 10.
So this one. So we won that one.
It looks like yes.
Okay. Interesting. Now, Cheryl Ann, because I've got it open, I'll explain what we've got here. We have, on this particular race, there was a bunch of, where I highlight in yellow is just for my own purposes to go, well, these tend to relate to the planetary energies. We've jumped ahead, but now we've got a winner of a race. We might have a look at that chart and show you how it was broken down. And if I scroll down, you'll see that my choices were 10, 11, 1, and 9. So I picked 9 to come fourth, only because of where it was at. 10 and 11 were the ones I was breaking out here, and then number 1, which was the one that was coming along. Can you tell me who came second, third, and fourth, Robert?
Yeah, I'm looking to see how it's broken down here.
So what Robert and Barbie and I did, we put it all together. We put down in what we thought was going to be in order, and then Robert backed, was it 2 or 3 horses in this race? I think
Well, we played 3 horses as part of the double for today and for the double, and we have 3 horses for the Derby tomorrow.
Okay. So, and what Robert played was 9, 10, and 1. So between the 3 of us, they were the ones that we came up with probably the closest. So Barbie's vibrational did better than purely the interpretation, because
it looks like it was 9, 5, 1.
9, 5, and 1. There you go.
Right.
So so realistically, out of our 3 picks, we got a first and a third. Now, what came fourth, Robert? Any idea? Or doesn't show you yet?
Believe it's hard to did not listen to horses yet.
Okay, we'll wait for that one. Let's have a quick look at the chart of it. So this particular race was the last one I did last night. And you'll see that we have, this is the chart of the race, and it's right on just after the full moon. So full moons happened not that long ago, and you can see that the sun has just set, the moon is about to rise. We have the top of the chart is a Leo midheaven, so the ruler is the sun. So what tends to be the case, Cheryl Ann, and this is how it's broken down, and there's a lot of stuff goes into it. When you've got 17 horses in a race, how you pick the winner generally, or what really should win, or it makes it easier to pick the winner, there are certain things that come into play. Any planet conjunct the midheaven very closely is more likely to be the winning energy, because the midheaven is the success point of the chart. That's been proven. Certain planets conjunct the midheaven are stronger than others, and they work better. So, for example, the planets that work the best are Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Believe it or not, the Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, and Pluto are not that reliable in their way of standing out over the energies of other planets. You might think that crazy considering the Sun and Moon being so powerful. How the Moon tends to work is it tends to be an amplifier of the planets it touches or aspects. So if we're looking specifically at the winner of this race, which was always a runner, so always is eternal, and eternal is the sun. And look what's happening. The moon's closest aspect, or sort of its closest aspect, it's opposing the sun. So it's just after full moon. The most important thing about that is its ruler. It rules the midheaven. So the midheaven ruler is often the one that's going to be associated to the winning planet, the winning horse. And the fact that the moon's in opposition is also very important. There's a couple of other factors that really play in, and that is we need to find the dispositing ruler. The sun is ruled by Venus. Venus is ruled by Mercury in Gemini. The Mercury is ruled by Aries, which is ruled by Mars, and Mars is in rulership.
Wow.
So it's strong. The moon, doesn't matter if we take it to Pluto rulership, to Uranus rulership, back to Mercury, it still comes back to Mars. The moon is also co-ruled by Mars. So we have a Sun-Mars combination, and that's what won the race. In simple terms, that sounds great, but let's go back to the actual chart of it, and you'll see there's quite a lot of Sun-Mars type of relationships here. So an explorer is normally a pioneer, which therefore is very much Mars and the Sun and Uranus, because they're breaking new ground. So we have an explorer themselves is actually Uranus Jupiter if you look at Rex Bills. So this is why I combine it and go, no, don't quite get that. I feel it's a bit more to it. When you scroll down, you can see the connections, and the sun is connected to Jupiter. So I've gone and highlighted which was related to the sun, and also why I've got Mercury, Uranus, Neptune, and Venus here counting stars is because there's other midpoints in play with Mercury and Uranus strong. But look, the only horse that is Sun Mars is always a runner. Everything else is not. Now, the reason why I did or didn't pick that as mine, and I picked Prom Queen, Sun, Venus, Moon, was because I felt that the moon and the sun together were going to be stronger. It wasn't because Venus was involved. But what we were trying to determine here was what energies are most potent and predominant. Hang on, I'm just going to, what have I done here? Why is that like that? Oh, I don't want to end meeting. I've just made that bigger and I wanted to get it smaller. I don't know what's going on there. I'll have to leave that like that. I thought it was in an angle. Sorry, I've just got on my screen, you guys are all sort of covering my chart. So here we had a very strong moon in a Mars ruled sign in opposition to the sun, which rules the midheaven, and the midheaven is, Leo, and everything disposits down to Mars. So the ruling planet and the Mars were the two winners of the race. A prom queen is the sun, can also be the moon. So that's why I put those two together. And because Venus was the ruler of the sun, that was also part of the reason why I thought prom queen was a possibility. But let me just go to the actual entry.
The results of the race was 9541.
4 came third, is it?
Yes.
9541.
The one came fourth. Prom queen came in fifth.
Counting stars. There you go. So there was a reason behind that, and I'll have to explain that in a bit more detail. And what I wanted to show everyone just quickly was what influences people a lot is the prices of the horses. So let me just see if I've got them here. So that's Churchill Downs. Let's go to entries. Let's go to where's Churchill Downs today? Race 13. Have a look here. So Bottle of Rouge got scratched. Nikon got scratched. So Explorer was a fairly strong favourite. Zany was a favourite. Counting Stars was a semi-favourite, but not really. Meaning was a semi-favourite. But when you come down to Always a Runner, he was 10-1. So it was a bit of a long shot in some ways, getting into the long shot side. Remember, number 7 was running up there, but it was Dazzling Dame, and it was 30-1. Percy's Bar was 6-1, and Prom Queen 8-1. So most of these, what I found was that was not necessarily going to be a really big, what I call roughie, or something that's 20-1 or 30-1 or whatever coming in to win. But at the same time, that's what was happening there. Let me show you the chart again.
Always Runner paid $13.
So he paid $13, which is quite good. That sets us up well for the double, Robert.
Yes.
Okay, so if I look at this, one of the other things I do, can everyone still see the screen?
I see a
Yes.
chart.
Yeah, good. That's what I'm after. So what I then do is I'm going to go to the reports. In here, I look at the midpoints. And so when I was looking at this, I look for strong midpoints to the midheaven itself, because that's a success point. And if I scroll down here, I can see there's the midpoint, but I look primarily for things like where it says D, where it's direct. So what that's saying is the midheaven is the midpoint between Uranus and the ascendant. So if I move this down here, you can see that the midpoint there, where's Uranus? It's here, and the ascendant's there. So the halfway point between there and there is the midheaven. On its own, what that's doing, that midpoint of Uranus involved with the ascendant, is indicating to me that it's not a favourite that's going to win in this instance. Uranus represents something that's not expected. Okay, so that's part and parcel of how that was going to work. Wait on, where are we? Come back up.
Is this chart cast for the beginning of the race?
Yes, it's cast for the beginning of the race. We also find here, have a look at that, the midheaven midpoint moon Uranus. So the moon and Uranus is also associated. So when you look at those two, that's an influence on the winner. Okay. Now there's a couple of other things I looked at. Where was it that was important? On the day, if you have a look here, where is it? I've been through so many races, so I've got to be careful where I'm at. That's it here. The moon itself, I always look at the moon and say, okay, what's triggering the moon and what's the moon triggering? Because remember I said it's an influence over planets. So the moon's midpoints is Juno midheaven. Yep, okay, maybe. But down here, look, it's a little bit wide, but Mercury, Uranus. So that's why you got something like counting stars, which is Mercury, Uranus, which is stars and galaxies, actually came into place. And these are the things that I look at. So when I imagine you're sitting there trying to work out, all right, so I know the sun is strong. So this is the methodology behind it. If when I see the sun and that's full moon, it's already passed. The moon's moving away. It's already 4 degrees away nearly. Normally in circumstances like that, I'd be going, it's too far away. Why it has such a massive influence is the midpoint probably between the sun and the moon is the ascendant-descendant axis. Because one's at 15, one's at 10. There's 4 degrees difference, and we've got 13 sits in the middle at 2 degrees difference. So you can see that sun moon is sort of, because of its proximity to the angle, is still working very strongly. So that's why I considered it. But if that's the case, then I had to consider what's the moon triggering. And it's triggering Mercury and Uranus. It also, Uranus and the moon itself were triggering the midheaven. So it was what happens in this instance, you go, well, which energy is more effective? Which one is going to be the winner? Which one's going to rule out over the other? And what I said to Robert yesterday, and that's why, always a runner was also included in my picks of the 4. So when I pick 4 like that, I go, I think they're in order like this, but any one of them can win. And I often get, my 4th pick comes first and my 3rd pick comes second, and it happens a lot. So what we're looking at here, where I highlight in yellow, these are the ones I'm picking out to consider. And you can see I've picked out always a runner, I picked out counting stars, and I picked out explorer. So, and what was the other one that came in, Robert? I didn't pick out meaning,
5 horse.
right? Mercury. Now, the interesting thing about Mercury, I've got to go back to the chart for a second. Meaning was pretty much the favorite. So it had what happens is I don't think the favorite will win. Remember I said that about the Uranus aspects? But when you've got no planet on the midheaven, nothing specific that's actually showing, and you're relying just on midpoints and other aspects to the midheaven, and I'll show you here, at 21 degrees Leo, there is no actual planet that it's hitting by degree. So there's nothing specific hitting that degree. There's nothing that says, okay, well, that planet's definitely bang, it's hitting that right now. So we look at it and go, okay, if that's the case, what's got more of an influence? Now, I'm going to go back to reports-wise. There was another one I'm looking for. I'm just going to find it because it was very important. It's for the whole day. The ascendant was also Mercury, Uranus. So that was you can see that coming in as being part of counting stars and why it got a place. But where is the other one I was looking for? Where is it?
Luke, can you very quickly explain why we're using direct and what makes a direct midpoint versus an indirect midpoint?
Okay, so an indirect midpoint might be, let's pick one. So say Venus, oh, that's Juno. Let's not worry about that. Let's say to the sun, Mars and Pluto. Okay. So where you've got, you look for the sun and then you look for Mars, where's Pluto? It's down here. So
Uh,
you look at it and go, well, that can't be the midpoint between those two. But what it is, it's the midpoint by square degree or by, it's on a 30-degree angle. So it's actually triggering. And this is where Robert's, the Uranian astrology and cosmobiology uses midpoint triggers. Some are more predominant than others. And I'll show you what I mean by that. If I go to the dial like this is what Robert's using.
I want to show you, there's a very interesting interpretation that came up on the 90-degree dial that I'll read you that kind of like correlates to always a runner.
All right. Do you want to share then, Robert? I'm just going to go back to Zoom.
Let's see here. Let's see if I can bring it up.
Barbie's off celebrating because she picked the winner. Or that, or she's having a salmon. You there, Robert?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Sorry about
So
that.
I have my 90-degree dial, and if you look at the meridian, you see like the ascendant and the Uranus coming in.
Yep.
Also the nodes and Apollon.
Now, just 1 second, Robert. Cheryl Ann, this is going to be a new type of astrology you've probably never seen.
actually, I've studied a little bit of Uranian.
Okay,
Oh, good.
All right, so that's fine.
So you know some of the Neptunian planets then, I guess, right?
Yeah, I some of them I'm more familiar with than others.
All
Okay.
right, so we'll
And
let
then
Robert
you have so to me, one of the key transits at the time was Venus and Vulcanus.
Mhm.
And if you look at the meaning of Venus Vulcanus, it's basically the biological urge or great power of attraction, a passion, mighty love, ardent, a desire, a bold passion, or a passionate action, or to be compelled and motivated by an inner force. And with that connection to the meridian, so when you think of always a runner, I mean, that kind of like fills in, you have to have the desire and the passion to be the runner and always be a runner.
The interesting thing is, Robert, it's that energy that made me pick prom queen in our top 4
Okay.
because a prom queen is the desired one. So, and she's usually at the top, right? So that's what I gave a little bit too much weight to rather than going back to the traditional what's stronger. And with a moon in Scorpio, Mars, in aspect and cross that ascendant, descendant, I would sort of beg to say that if that moon sun opposition was not right across the axis, the ascendant descendant axis, that always a runner may not have got up. Did you also noticed that strongly Mercury Uranus type energy coming through with the other horses? Look, Mercury, the word meaning is Mercury. It's mercurial. And it came second. It was the favorite. But that's also the favorites running. And then we have, did you say the other one was? Counting stars. I mean, you can't get more Mercury Uranus than that. So, but when we look at it, the one that won out was Mars and the Sun, the ruler of the midheaven being the Sun, dispositing down to Mars, and at the same time the Moon, which was triggering that Sun widely, but it was triggering it because it was midpointing across the axis, is also a Mars-ruled moon. So we had, that's how I see it being picked and winning, and that's why it was in my top 4. But it was the least favourite of the lot. That's all. And Barbie did well with the vibrational. What else would you like to say here, Robert? Sorry, I keep jumping in a bit.
That's okay.
Do you want to take it round to that C point, whatever that thing's called? What do you call
I'm sorry?
that little point number, the C on the left hand side there? What do you say that's It's like the combination. Yeah. What's that? What shows up there?
If you like,
Look at that. Aries point and Uranus.
yes,
Can you explain what that little point is?
sure. Um, what that is the whole combination of all the planets and the degrees that they are in. And then if you were, my friend had a very he developed this thing like a wheel like that, and you put like all the planets there, and he would like put pins on all the sides of these planets, and what would happen, it would hit like to the Aries point, and that would be the combination of all the what energy of all the planets combined where they're at. So
Okay.
here they're basically almost like at 0 degrees of Taurus, but if you look at that with that midpoint, it has Uranus and Aries, and Aries is really the world axis, or the connection to the environment, and with Uranus there, it's just like sudden changes and surprises.
Yeah.
So, in that particular sense, you wouldn't want to bet on a heavy favorite.
No. No.
Okay.
Yet the heavy favourite came second by the look of it, and nearly won by the look of it.
I don't think that was a heavy favorite.
I thought Meaning was the heavy favourite.
Who?
Meaning.
No. Let me just go back. Let's see here. Well,
Meaning was 5-1.
the two horse was a favorite, and then there
Oh,
was like 4 or 5
zany.
horses that were like one off at 5-1 and 6-1 and
Okay.
7-1.
Yeah, Meaning was the second favourite. Looking at this. Okay. Now, where are we at? What time is it? All right, we've probably got another. Do we have another? Yeah, about another 20 minutes to go, I'd say. Cheryl Ann, Robert, do we want to keep going with the Kentucky Derby, which is what we were set out to
Yeah,
try and pick a winner?
we'll go back to the Kentucky. I just wanted to go to the Oaks because the race was going off, and we did an analysis of the race
Thank you.
as it was being played.
Hmm. It is morning time for me, and I had a late night, as Cheryl knows, because I was messaging her from my room. All right, now let's go back to sharing screen. And we've had a bit of a look at what's happened here, which is great. But let's go back to these, and we're going to go to Kentucky Derby itself. I'm going to use this one. Okay. What we have is actually what we haven't done is shown the chart of the Kentucky Derby. Let's go back and do that first. There's a good reason for that. Cheryl Ann, this is your first look at this particular chart. Now you'll notice from the Kentucky Derby point of view, because we don't have the winner for this yet, we're not sure what it's going to be. We have a midheaven at 27 of Cancer, and Jupiter is not conjunct it. The midheavens moved past it, so Jupiter's influence is not as strong as we would potentially hope. Interestingly enough, we have Chiron in an exact square to the midheaven. Midheaven's about to hit it. And therefore Mercury is close by that as well. What we also do have is that the midheaven is just leaving the trine to the moon. So there is a degree aspect from there. Although that says that's, Scorpio to Aries, and that's a quincunx aspect, that doesn't mean anything. It actually means that they're both in Mars ruled signs. So what is that giving with all of this? The moon, strength because it rules the midheaven, and it's also going to Chiron, and it's going to they all disposit down to Mars. Have the same situation happening again, but there's no clear cut planetary energy over the top of the others. Can you see that? There's just we're now starting to play with angles and degrees and speculating. It's not like that Jupiter sits right on the midheaven. We go, okay, Jupiter's really strong. So what I'm going to do, we'll go to the reports. We'll bring them up. Just got to move that out of the way. Let's have a look at the midpoints. So the midpoint trees, and first thing I do is go to the midheaven because it's the moving one. And what it's showing is we have a direct midpoint, Mercury ascendant. So what that means is that Mercury and ascendant are an exact midpoint to the midheaven right now. Okay, so the midheaven is halfway between these two. Now the ascendant is Venusian. Mercury, as we know, is in Aries. Mercury itself, this is the other thing to take into consideration, Cheryl Ann. Like I said, certain planets don't have as much strength as others in determining outcomes. Now, what ties in with that no one taught me, but I worked it out, was the rotation speed of the planet. How fast its day cycle is. So the sun and moon turn relatively slowly, about the 30-day mark, a little bit less. Okay, and Venus takes 243 days to turn around once. So it's a bigger planet than Mars, but if it spun as fast as Mars, I don't think we'd have life on this Earth because the energy would be too strong. It'd be producing too much. What's the energy it produces? I believe it's neutrinos. It's subatomic particles that are directed towards each of the planets. So they're produced by the sun and redirected by the planets, and that's how it all works in a simple nutshell. When you go to Jupiter, it takes 9 hours and 50 minutes to turn around. So it's spinning like a mofo, you could say. It's like a top, and it's huge. So that's why it has influence. Saturn, it's about 10 hours, 17 minutes, I think. Uranus is 16 hours something. Neptune's about 17 hours. Pluto's in that, I don't know, 58 days or something. Or it might be 58 days for Mercury. So Mercury turns slow, Venus turns slow, the moon turns slow, the sun turns slow, and Pluto turns slow. So they don't have, what's the word for it? Influence so much. But why does the moon have influence? Because the moon collects. Its nature is it collects. And it's got so much physical control over the planet. It controls our tides. It controls different things and movement within us. And we're water-based creatures, and water is what the life of the planet really is. So when the moon's collecting, it's collecting all that energy and using it. So when the moon is in particular aspect to planets, then that's why it gives it focal point. So even Venus, with a moon-Venus opposition or a moon-Pluto opposition, it will give strength to that Plutonian energy as part of the outcome of something, or Venus as a part of the outcome of something. But in this instance, we don't have that at the moment. What we do have, though, is the moon in strong aspect, indirectly, though, by degree anyway, to the midheaven and to Chiron, and the midheaven is moving towards a square to Mercury. So they're all strong, but those planets alone, because it's Mercury and it's the moon, they're not highly influential. Mars is, and Mars rules and disposits rules to both of those. So once again, we have a very strong Mars type chart. Does that all make sense?
Yes, that was a lot to take in, but
Yes, there's
yeah.
a lot to take in, and I apologize. This is where it becomes
You know,
interesting.
also,
This was
what I did also was I took all the races at the Oaks today, and a lot of the horses did have like Mars influences.
that's right. They do. Have a look at
I'll just
this.
read you some of the names of the horses that won the race. Like in the first race, Soaring High won,
Soaring High, which is sort of Uranian, yeah, but
and the
it's also
favorite was
Mars because it's like a jet.
Phantom Blue was the heavy favorite. He didn't come in. And the second race, the winner was Amalfi Drive, which paid $23.
Okay.
You know, Drive has a similar Morris connotation.
So they're all in that similar vein. What I'll do,
Sorry?
what's that, Robert?
No. The third race, the winner of that race was Maximum Offer. That's like moves like a Jupiter Mars, I guess.
It is, yeah, exactly. This is my limit. It's nearly like Jupiter Saturn, actually. But
The next horse was
actually, wait a minute.
Pastorini.
It's also mercurial because it's an offer. So, what was that next one? Sorry.
And then Pastorine was the winner of the fourth race.
Do you know what that means at all?
I
Pastorine.
wasn't quite sure, but like looking at the other Mars, like Power to Glory would have been a Mars horse. He didn't come in, he didn't do anything.
How does Pastorine spell? Pasterine.
Yes, Passerine,
Hang on,
Pastorine.
wait on. Pass, is it?
Yes, Erine.
Passerine is a non-standard slang. It's a technical ornithological term for perching birds or songbirds. While not common slang in Italian, similar words passera can
Bird.
slangily refer to female genitalia. Great, that's what we need. So perching birds, which is interesting because that's birds are mercurial.
Uh-huh.
However, it's got other connotations. Why I'm saying that, Robert, this is what I've meant to show you both before.
Mercury was quite a
Mercury's
bit.
midpoint is Sun Mars.
Uh-huh.
That's part of what's going on.
And
That's
then
why
the winner of the
Mercury
next race was called Prepped,
prepped as in something's prepped.
Prepped.
So being prepped is very mercurial because it's like a Virgo. It's being organized.
And
But
then the
being
winner of the sixth race was Carmel Coast.
Carmel Coast. See, that's a location probably.
Well, yeah, Carmel is in California. Carmel,
Okay.
California, is on the coast there. The winner of the next race, the seventh race, was Moonspun.
Moonspun.
Pun. The winner of the next race was called On Time Girl, which is like Mercury, the Mercurial type of
Yeah.
connotation. So it looks like Mercury Mars is going to be has a very strong influence maybe into Mars races.
Have a look at this. Cheryl, you see this one? We have not only Mercury's midpoint is the Sun Mars, but we have the ascendant's midpoint is Mercury Mars.
Oh,
It's also Sun Neptune. So there's a lot of stuff going on.
And then in the last four races, the winner was Corporate Power.
Very Pluto, but power is also Mars and the Sun.
And then there was another one was called Kathy Marissa.
That's very Venusian.
Yes.
But it's two of them. So they could be twins. They could be friends. They could be partners. So it could be Mercurial Venus. But all right, so I'm just conscious of time. Let's see if we can pick a winner.
What would you call sheer the Grod?
What's that? Oh, it's
Sheer,
shred the gnar.
sheer,
Shred the
sheer the.
gnar is a skating term. So it's very Mars. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was the winner of the 11th race.
Okay. Barbie, well done.
Yeah, I know, huh? Yeah, but you want to also know that if on my sheet, and I didn't give the whole sheet, but I put it in the chat earlier that 4 and 5 I had down as finished structure and strength was for 5, that number 5. And then the other one was a break in a pattern, could break the pattern, was counting stars was in there.
Yeah.
But I could run these patterns like this and give you which ones would be the ones that would do that, and maybe have another structure of to be able to pull from, that are long, the ones that you didn't think, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Because these are here saying that they could do it.
All right.
That's what I'm saying.
Can you run that in the background while we try and pick a winner for the Derby? Because if you have a look, what I'm getting, you've just come in on the back end there, Barbie.
Yeah. I would kind of been watching it from the background a little bit.
Yeah.
On and off, so
we have what seems to be, and this was part of the reason, there's a strong mercurial influence.
yeah.
Interestingly enough, if you have a look, the moon is ruling the midheaven of this chart. We know that the ruler of the midheaven has a big influence on the wind. And where do they dispose it down to? Being the moon itself's not strong in a horse racing term. It's very strong in others, but it's ruled and breaks down to Mars in Aries. So
You want to hear something? You want to hear that? Because I've been listening to that.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: if you go to the MC, it's 26 Cancer, and the moon is conjunct the fixed star Procon, which is a Mars Mercury nature, fast thinking, quick.
So I personally think, looking at what we've seen, Mercury and Mars are also the midpoint of those two is the ascendant in this race. And although Neptune and the Sun is also across that, but that's on its own. It doesn't have influence from anywhere else, these two. Mars has influence from both the moon. It has influence from the ruler of the moon, and it also, what else? Yeah, it has influence from the ruler of the moon, but it's also strongly connected to that Mars. The Mercury and the Mars. The other thing that's important is that midheaven is going to, during the course of the race, come closer to the square to Mercury. So it's triggering that Mercury. So my gut feeling here would be that we're either going to have a Mercury-Mars horse win the Cup, win the Derby, or it's going to be purely, whichever. So if there's I'll explain. I'm getting lost now, but I'll go back to here. If we look at these being the horses, Renegade, and I've got my decisions here, which I've sent off to you guys.
Yeah, we have them.
I may still change it because we've got time. I don't.
So you got 1, 6, 18, 28, and 12.
Yeah, so I put some stuff in there, but one of the things that, and it's Greg Clare, and I wish he'd sort of jumped on, he's often said, let me just check something first. I'm just going to check one thing before I open my mouth. You notice in this race, the one that went off, the moon is in the first house. Okay, that's the one we've just had run, and we had always a runner win. Okay. Now, if I go to the Kentucky Derby, the moon is in the second house. And I'm pretty sure that it's Greg Clare that said to me, the moon's in the second house. On horse races, when the moon's in the second house, a favourite's going to win.
Yes, I remember him saying that.
Yes, okay. So if that's the case, that's something to also consider in here. So if we look at that and we go back to this one, the actual here, one of the strong favourites is Renegade. Okay, so that's why at the moment I've probably got that as my number one choice, because I couldn't get past or find a purely Mars-Mercury on its own. However, we have potentially this one, right? I'm just going to highlight a few things here. Let's just go.
Commando was one.
Commandment is an interesting one, because
commandment, yeah.
It also has a Mars relationship to it because it's an authoritative rule. And I haven't even put that in here as Mars. But a commander is the sun.
Yeah.
Mars, Sun.
Okay, so then here's the thing: is I have my disruptive layers is incredible, potenti, and full
Yep.
fort, and Dan and Bourbon. Those are my disruptive layers, like we just had in this race.
Mm-hmm.
So I think somehow looking at the disruptive layers and the vibration and seeing which one of those four could be the most ones like this 4 and 5 took in. You see what I'm saying?
Yep. Now I'm going to throw a few things in here. Now this is an interesting one. I'm not 100% sure about 6 speed, because why I haven't included it adds up pretty well to me. A 6 speed is usually a gearbox. And a gearbox is mechanical, which is Mars, but it's also 6 speed. It's a number, which is Mercury. It's about 50 to 1. Has never run in this country, I don't think, before. So because I keep seeing the moon there going, it looks like it might be a favourite, I haven't included that like that. All right. Pavlovian, interesting. But Chief Wallaby, yeah, ish. But if we're looking for just Mercury, Mars, we're not really seeing that, are we?
Yeah. So can I
The
give
only
you like
one that
some
is
hints?
emerging market.
Yeah, but here, if you look at this, winning horses demonstrate. So ability, here's what this vibrations, ability to handle the pace, pressure. That's very Mars, right? As you mentioned. Adaptability under changing conditions is a V62 horse. And balanced placement composure is a V15. And enough structure to complete the race is a V10. And so that's kind of where I have. So I think that's just another way of looking at it. You know, that's the vibrational kind of kickback on it. But I think the moon, I always like Gregory Clare. He's got wisdom, and not to say you don't as well. But the moon piece, that second house, I think is something to consider, right?
Yeah, it is something to consider for sure. So going back to this, I'm going to try and move that out of the way again. Where do we all sit? So what I had predicted that I sent off to everybody was these, and I wrote here, damn impossible to pick, but the moon in the second house often represents a favourite will win from memory. So I had 1 and 6, this is from last night, commandment to come second. And then I've got 18, 20, and 8 and 12. 18 being further ado, which is Mars, right? 20, which is full effort, that's Jupiter, Mars. So I'm not sure about that now with the Mercurial. And then we've got, because from re-looking, 8, which is so happy. And then I've got 12, which is Chief Wallaby. But realistically, I've excluded emerging market when it's truly the Mars Mercury of the race. So is 6 speed.
Yeah. But Mercury's has some issues because it's conjunct Chiron and also Eris, and it's not sitting good.
Yeah, but it's
So
been
it's going
going
to
pretty
be,
well all day.
yeah.
And it's very powerful in this chart. So I might even reconsider some of the ones that I've picked. But at the end of the day, what have you chosen, Robert, for the 3 horses to put in for the double for tomorrow? Do you remember?
Yes, I believe it was.
Further Ado was one of them, 18.
Mhm.
Commandment was another, wasn't it?
6, 15, and 18.
6,
Yeah.
15, and
Commandment.
18. So you've put in emerging market, 18 Further Ado, and number 6, commandment.
Right.
And we haven't included renegade, which is the main favorite. So that's probably my only concern there, because it's very strongly Mars. But what it really comes down to, is it Mars and Mercury? Or is it Mars? What happens when we're doing this? Cheryl, this is for your benefit and anyone else who's watching. When I've done this traditionally in the past, when I get a winner and I know it's going to win, is, let's say, for example, a bit like the last race, when we were able to determine that it was going to be a Sun-Mars winner, then when it was always a runner, was the Sun and Mars. And you could go, well, that's going to win. But it's determining which planetary energy is having the strongest input. And sometimes that's hard to do when you've got all these combinations. If, for example, in this race, Mars itself was sitting right on the midheaven and it was the dispositing ruler. So in other words, it has supreme rulership over the chart. Then you could put your hand on your heart and say, a Mars horse is going to win. And then what you would do is you would look for a horse that is 100% Mars in rulership. And if that was the case in this situation, you would only pick Intrepido because it's 100% Mars. Renegade has a Uranus influence. Puma has a Sun influence. Incredibolt has a Uranus influence. Everything else is not. Then again, you've got Further Ado. So if that was the case and Mars was left on its own to be the winner, you'd have to choose between these two, Intrepido and Further Ado. And then what you'd do is have to weigh it up. When you've got one horse, one planet, and that's the only one that's in there, and it's right on the midheaven, and it's got strength over everything else, that's going to be your winner. I had one I did, I think, on a live session here with people one day. We were going through similar stuff. And I said, let's have a look at the next race, what's coming up. And we had a look, and it was Mars in that position that I've just described. And there was all these horses, and one was called Motorsports. And I went, it's the only one that was Mars. And I went, it's got to win. So I bet on it. And then we finished up the session, and then I emailed everyone who was in there saying, guess what won? Motorsports. No problems. But that's not how races work. They don't come up with this wonderful, just lands in the right spot at the right time. But what it does prove, though, is when it does, you get the winner. That's the thing. And and there's also an element about strength. So the other thing to take into consideration, and this is to do with astrological interpretation across a lot of things, and that is that when Mars is in Aries, it's very powerful. When Mars, say, has been in Taurus, I haven't necessarily seen it behave in exactly the same way when it should. So a Mars conjunct the midheaven in Taurus doesn't have as much power as a Mars conjunct the midheaven in Aries. And sometimes things overrule it. So they're all parts of the rulership. Now, you reckon we can make a decision, guys? What do you think's going to win based on that Mercury Mars? Or who would you like to pick, Cheryl Ann? Maybe what I'll do is I'll bring up the actual...
There's a couple of Mercury Mars horses.
Now, let me get back to here. Wrong one. Wrong one. There we are. There's the whole field.
Actually, can you go back to where we have the planets?
Yeah, okay. The only thing is I can't show you the whole screen in one go. So tell me when you want me to scroll down. I only got the first 16 there.
Scroll down. I'm gonna go with an Intrepido or emerging market.
Okay. All right. So we'll put that down on record. So emerging market, to me, seems like the logical one that's very Mercury Mars, and so does 6-speed. Now let me show you. Just bear with me. I'm just going to shut the door because Lydia's on the phone. And everyone will hear it in a minute. It's her friend. All right. We've got, what I wanted to do was go back to this for a second. Where the questions in my mind come from, and that is Intrepido is 50 to 1. Cheryl Ann.
No.
So it's not a favourite at all, hasn't been running well. Emerging market is 15 to 1. So it's been running okay, but it's also not a favourite. So my question is, if it looks like the moon in the second house is going to be more likely going with favourites, that's why I went with Further Ado and Renegade and Commandment.
Yeah.
What I also chosen their Chief Wallaby. The reason being, but I put emerging market in there, but further down. The thing is, this is where it becomes the problem. And the problem is, what's stronger? What's winning more? Is it purely Mercury Mars? Or because there is no direct aspect to the midheaven, because don't forget the real winner of the race, or the real strongest planet in the race, is still Mars. The same as it was with Always a Runner. Right? What made the sun influence that win today was because it was in opposition to the moon. The moon was giving the sun some strength. In the Kentucky Derby chart, the moon is not giving any planet additional strength. The moon is only giving strength to one planet, potentially, and that's Chiron, which is not really a planet, and the midheaven. But
Well, would it also be operating on behalf of Mars?
yes, that's what I was going to say. So really what it does is it's giving the strongest influence across the board to me is Mars itself.
Okay, so then maybe it would be Further Ado.
See, it could be Further Ado, yeah. And so Robert has picked Further Ado, Emerging Market covering the Mercury Mars, and then what he hasn't done though is cover the favorite, which is Renegade. But that doesn't mean anything.
Well, you know what? Actually, the will pays on with the 9 winning the Oaks. Renegade would pay $44 if it came in.
Mm-hmm.
One. Commandment pays $43. The favorite, actually, the short price is the 15 at $35, which is emerging market. $39 is Chief Wallaby.
So are you saying
And
emerging markets come up in its
he's the favorite in the double with the 9.
emerging market is? Are you saying emerging market's the favorite now?
Well, in the double. The people who bet the daily bet the double with the Oaks
Oh, okay. So the
and
ones
the
who are
Derby.
betting with that one.
Well, you have to look at it that way too, because
Okay,
the
gotcha.
people that pick the 9 horse to win the Oaks, and then to do the other to win the Derby in the 9th race, the short price is really
Emerging
emerging
market.
market.
Interesting. So it is a favorite in essence for that
Well, in the doubles, but
yeah.
we'll see what happens tomorrow when the race goes off.
Yeah. So you've picked, Robert, just so everyone knows, for this, the 3 main horses, you've got Commandment, you've got Emerging Market, and you've got Further Ado.
Further ado.
The other one here, see, 6-speed? It's also 50 to 1 like Intrepido. So although this fits
If the
Mercury
16
Mars,
came in, it would pay $507.
if 6-speed came in, did you say if 6-speed came in? So let me just
Yes,
show you what I
16.
mean.
Okay.
So I go to there, if I go to 6-speed and look at its results,
6-speed, yeah.
it's run really well, but it hasn't run in the US.
It's from Japan, I think, right? Japanese
Yeah, and
horse?
it's run at the UAE, United Arab Emirates. But that's a grade 2 race, not a grade 1 race, and it finished second, but it doesn't show me how it run. But it's got a pretty good history already. So it's an unknown. So to be 50 to 1 and being Mercury Mars, maybe it's worth throwing in there as a possibility. However, looking at that moon in the second house, am I structured more back towards a favourite winning, not necessarily a roughie like this, which is not necessarily favoured? If you look at Further Ado and its form, and this is about all the things, it's had 2 starts, a first and a second, but it just won a race only a couple of weeks ago. And when we look at its chart of what happened, it won by 11 lengths. So it ran in a big grade 1 race and won by 11 lengths over its closest competitor. So it smashed them. So it's in good form. That's why I thought Further Ado would be a very strong one. It's done well and doing well. That makes sense? So in other words, when you're talking about this and there's so many various possibilities, that's why sometimes I don't just go with the astrology 100% because it's so much to take in. And the other thing to take in is that sometimes when we don't have a specific planet in a specific place being the specific ruler, then often it falls back to form and favoritism and those horses that are just running better on the day. So all of a sudden the astrology falls in a bit of a heap, you could say, and you've got to work around it. And that's what the hardest part is. That's why Robert and I can go, yeah, we can pick winners if they were all lined up okay with the astrology. But because they're not, that's when you sometimes stuff it up. So, but look, from what we've just done with the Oaks today, between Barbie, Robert, and I, we got the winner, and which is great. My thing here is I'm not sure. I'm not underestimating Renegade. That's why I picked it as possibly one of the winners, if not the winner. But I also think definitely Commandment. I really do like Further Ado. Emerging Market astrologically fits, but not necessarily by the moon's position, but it definitely fits. So does 6-speed. And yet it also, look, at the end of the day, if you took an each way bet on 6-speed and it comes in third at 50 to 1, you're still doing okay. That's the point, right? Because it fits astrologically. That's the sort of thing that it may be worth doing. And Robert, maybe that's the way to do it. Maybe take a couple little each way bets on some of these really high priced non-favorites just to see if they, even if they came third at 50 to 1, you might get, $20 for the place and you've only put, $10 on each way and all of a sudden we're $200 up, It's that sort of thing. Anyway, I reckon, has anyone got any further comments? But I think, have we honed in on a winner? Does anyone want to take their stab at their most favourite after all this discussion?
Can I share the screen?
Certainly can.
Okay. So here's the Kentucky Derby race here for tomorrow.
Yep.
What's interesting that you remember like when I put everything on that C?
Yep.
So look what hits it. The sun and Kronos.
Mm-hmm.
That's the powerful person or the people in charge. This six horse might be very live.
Commandment. You're talking about commandment? Was that the six horse?
Well, with the Kronos and Sun, it's like, you're talking about the powerful bosses,
Yes, I agree.
government, and so with that there, but also when you look at the moon, it comes right with Capito, which is really and connects in with Kronos and
Esther.
Vesa,
Esther. Yeah.
and with Volcanus. So that could be some sort of a powerful the public or someone in along. I'm trying to look at some of the names that would correlate with them with.
Well, see, the other thing is there, look at that, Robert, which is really important, and this is one of the reasons we went down the commandment path, is it's also tied in, there's a strong connection there to Jupiter and Neptune, which is the spiritual law.
All right.
See
Let's see.
Jupiter, Neptune down the bottom there? From the moon, where you just were, the connection, the midpoint between Jupiter and Neptune being triggered at the back there. Yeah.
Correct.
So there's these are the so underneath it all, Cheryl, and I say it loosely, I've tried to do this session as if I'm looking at it fresh again. Does that make
Mm.
sense? And
Yeah.
And
each time
Jupiter
you look at
Neptune is
it,
like basically a lucky mood or easily acquired money. Well, also money losses, but easily made money, uncertain possessions, speculations, financial transactions, but also the future life.
all right.
And
So
with the
Robert, I'm going to
moon,
throw a little what do you call it? Um a spanner in the works. Cheryl will know this. When we were sitting in Astro Dice before this, we rolled, will you, I, and Barbie make a lot of money out of the Kentucky Derby? Now, the first roll was Jupiter in Pisces in the sixth house.
well, that's very lucky with horses.
Yeah. So, but it's also that Jupiter in Pisces, that's
Right.
Jupiter Neptune. Okay.
Correct.
So then the other thing we did was she said, okay, let's be a little bit more specific because that was where we win. It was what was the next question? Do you remember what it was, Cheryl? It was about
Oh, geez. I don't
oh,
know.
will we have a lucky day at the races? I think it was, or will we win at the races today on the Kentucky Derby? And then Courtney rolled, and we got Mars in Aries in the 11th. So to me, that was yes, because the 11th house is the house of gains, but Mars in Aries is interesting. So I'm not sure if that meant it's going to be a Mars day, because it's definitely focusing on Mars in Aries and the rulership side of it. But then the winning a lot of money was the Jupiter in Pisces in the sixth house. So, you know, spiritual or service, physical service to others, da 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 da. This could be something like commandment. Anyway,
Well, what's interesting with the pick six, you could play for 20 cents,
yep,
which like today, I think 20 cents paid $4,000 for 20 cents for the pick six.
there you go.
Wait, where can you play for 20 cents?
But it's a
Over
combination,
here.
Cheryl, so it adds up. So if you cross all combinations, let's say you pick six. So what Robert might do is in the pick six, he'll pick two horses in each race.
Well, not at 20 cents. I'm going to pick maybe three or four horses.
Okay.
I was doing it for $1 because then $1, so now you get a little bang for your dollar. So you could always like put in a roughie and that roughie might come in. There were a lot of horses that came in today that paid $23, $24.
Yeah, I've got
Actually,
a. That's the Uranus influence that was there today, and it's still sort of there at the moment. Yeah,
the pick five for 50 cents paid $8,800.
8,800.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what website is this?
This is a New York website called TVG.
PVG.
T like Thomas, V like Victor, G like George.
Yeah. Now, when we say it's not just for 20 cents, so let's say, for example, what happens is it multiplies depending on the combinations. So what Robert's saying is if you say played 3 horses in each race, Robert, over 6 races at 20 cents, what would that be for the one bet, approximately?
Um, Let me see if I can pull this up here.
So I'll give you an idea. What it is, you're it's like they call it like boxing, meaning it can come in any combination. You don't have to pick one, two, three, four, five, six. You know, you've got 6 horses.
No. With the pick six, you only win if you get the winner.
That's right.
Right. With
Yeah,
the superfecta, we could box 6 horses in the Kentucky Derby for $1,
yeah,
and it'll cost us $360 to box 6 horses.
that's
We
right.
just need 4 of those 6 horses to come in first, second, third, and fourth.
Yeah, that's where it becomes. See what I mean? So for your dollar, you got 360 potential combinations in that what Robert's saying. So you get your first horse can come first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and you keep going. And there's 360 different combinations in order that they could come in. So you bet it's you only you bet $360 to win on it if you bet $1. But if the $1 bet's paying 100,000 bucks, then that's a pretty good win for your $360 bet. That's sort of how it works.
If you give me a second, I'll tell you exactly. I'll give you an idea of something here. Okay. So we're gonna go
Yep.
20 cents. So this is what we're gonna. I'll just like do randomly here. One, two, three. One, two, three. One, two, three.
You're just seeing what the dollar value is, aren't you, Robert?
Well, I just want to see what the cost would be
Yeah.
to do that for the pick three. So we could pick 3 horses in each of the 6 races for 20 cents, and it'll cost us $145.
Yeah.
Like on today's race, the pick that 20 cents pick came returned $4,400.
Yeah. So maybe it's worth doing that across the
Well, yeah,
big
we
six.
have enough capital to do it.
Yeah, that's right. So
Like a little splurge cat.
and maybe what if you added 4 horses to the Kentucky Derby or even 5? Just curious.
Oh, put an X instead of three, go
Go
one.
3 3 3 and then a 5 at the end or something like that.
Yeah, so then we did that, it would be $243.
See? So what you're
So we
doing
could
there,
cover.
Cheryl, is you're going, I've got each race I need to pick the winner, but I've got 3 options. Three, 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 three. Get to the Kentucky Derby. I'll pick my top 5. But we have to pay 200 and something dollars just for the one bet.
Now, if we did it for $1, it would have to come up with $1,200 to do that.
Yeah, it's a big difference. And this is
But
how people
like
win on
instead
syndicate.
of winning $4,400 for 20 cents, now you're looking at a return of 24,000.
Yeah,
Okay, that's going over my head, and actually,
that's
I'm
okay. You got to go
getting
to
pretty
bed.
tired. So,
All right, I reckon it's time to close up. But
that's okay.
have you decided what you think might be the winner for you, Cheryl Ann, from what we've said?
Um, the moon in the second is causing me to want to go more for the favorites. So there was the Mercury Mars favorite was
Emerging
um
markets.
Emerging market.
emerging market,
It
and
was
then the Mars favorite is
Further Ado, Renegade.
yes, further ado,
Okay.
yes.
Yep. All right. Well, Robert, I think we've sort of nailed it down to, at this point, emerging market, further ado, commandment, and I still would go, fourth one would possibly still be Renegade, the favorite. That's sort of where my head's at. And if you really, really wanted to go with something out of the blue, you'd go with six speed because it's Mercury Mars as well. And even if it gets a place at 50 to 1, you might do okay. Are we
Well,
all ready?
we might do that to play a super.
Okay. All
Okay.
right. I reckon we should clear up for the night. You can stop sharing,
Well,
Robert, if you want. And
well, what's good about this? We did a lot of homework, and we still have time to zero in on things for the
yeah,
next
that's
12
why I did
hours.
this today because thanks for coming along, Cheryl Ann, because there's a lot to absorb. What you're learning now is a lot of years of astrological study and winning and losing along the way and stuffing it up and trying to get it. But my question to you is, if you've got any questions along the way, just ask. If you decide I'm going to sit down and do a horse race, flick me through the race and say, what do you think of this? These are my, use it as your own. If that's what you want to do, you can. I have no problems in helping you. The more one of these days down the track, Robert and I will sort of push a little further and bring in what I would call a bit of a syndicate or something like that, where people up to speed we go. Let's see if we can work it together. That's what we've done with Barbie. See how we go. I don't know
Now,
if many heads will
I
will
want to show
fix
you
it,
another.
stuff it up.
This is
Yeah,
another
thank you.
different. This is another. You have to always look at the ascendant. Look what's on the ascendant on this race here when it goes off. Mars, Mercury, right on the ascendant. Also with the Pars Fortune and the part of the Earth
Where's
connected
Mars
there.
Mercury?
Well, here's Mars.
Oh yeah, oh Mars
Here's
Mercury. There was
Mercury,
two. Yep.
right on the ascendant.
Yeah, that's right. That's what we're saying. The Mars Mercury is the midpoint of Mars Mercury. Exact is the ascendant. That's why the
And it's not
Mercury
too
Mars
far
is
from the
spread forward.
Venus nodes also.
Yep. So it'll be a very interesting one. All right. Well, I'm going to stop the recording, and I was going to say thanks everybody for joining. This was supposed to be an hour and a half. It's been about 2 hours, but we've had some fun. So I'm going to stop the recording, and thanks again.